Live from TO to the world.
This is Capsule on Live in Limbo.
Today, back on the show with us is the awesome and well-knowledged and pop-cultured Mehek Seyid. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing awesome. Today is great.
I know. It's a beautiful sunny day right now.
Today is Saturday, February 20. The temperature is getting warmer. We are getting out of winter in Canada, and we are in the plus right now.
For this weekend, and then we're heading back into minus temperatures, which is kind of crazy because last weekend, on Saturday last weekend, it felt like minus 35 outside.
Yes. So, that's funny. Last week was the coldest, I think it was the coldest day in February in recorded history.
Yeah.
Some said from the beginning of time, but I don't believe that because there was the Ice Age, and I was probably there too.
Might be hard to determine.
I know. So anyways, we have a super packed and exciting episode for you today. We're going to be talking about the Grammy winners, the life of Pablo from Kanye, of course, VEVO streaming, Kesha in the news, and of course the FBI versus Apple case that's affecting everyone right now. But we're going to start off with a nice and more enjoyable segment with the Grammy winners. So this was the 58th Grammys, I believe, yes. And a lot of things swirled around. I was overall happy with the winners. How about you? What do you think?
I'm sorry for all my Swiftie fans out there, but I was immensely disappointed with her win for Album of the Year.
Okay, well, we'll save that one for the last point we make.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
But overall,
yeah, I mean, I think everyone that I hoped would win walked out with a couple of trophies, which was great. You even have people like D'Angelo who got a couple of wins in there, which was awesome for his last album. And Justin Bieber won his first Grammy, which is what up, Canada? That's great.
Awesome. Yeah.
And it's a great song. I'm a huge fan. Yeah, I mean, it was, in terms of the awards, it was a decent distribution, I would say. But yeah, the Album of the Year part, which we'll talk about
yeah.
later, but that's the big point of contention for me.
Katrina wanted me, who's our social media editor, wanted me to give a thumbs up to Ghost, who won, I think it was Metal or Alternative Rock Album of the Year. One of those. Anyways, Ghost? They dress up like the Pope.
Yeah.
Yes. She loves them.
Awesome.
And that's good for them. Good stuff.
That is awesome.
Do you feel like when you were watching it, they were giving out one award per hour or something?
Yeah,
What's up with that?
They gave out a lot of awards in the pre-telecast session, I guess. So going in, Taylor Swift, I don't know if you guys were paying attention to social media that night. She, hours before, had already posted reaction videos because she and her squad won Grammy for the Bad Blood music video. And so she and Selena were freaking out backstage. And then Kendrick Lamar actually went into the Grammys with a couple of wins already. So it was kind of weird, though, because there were so many performances and tributes that it didn't feel like an awards ceremony necessarily. And I don't know,
it just felt like a big concert, which is cool too.
Exactly. I mean, there were some good elements to that, definitely. Some performances that were significantly better than others, but it didn't feel like there were many trophies being handed out throughout the night. And it's funny that we talked about how many performances there were because there were supposed to be more.
Oh, even more? Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Rihanna was supposed to perform and had to cancel extremely last minute because she had bronchitis, I believe. And Lauryn Hill was supposed to be on stage with The Weeknd as well.
Okay, so what was your favorite performance of the night?
Kendrick Lamar,
yes.
For sure. I thought his performance was dynamic. It was engaging. It was political. It was refreshing in so many ways. And he brought out new material randomly in the middle of his Grammys performance, which is not something really heard of on that.
Yeah, that usually, I don't think that ever happens really.
No.
But his whole production and his energy and like the camera angles and everything just
Yeah.
worked so well. And the lighting, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, I mean, the production team and the videographers and the people who were working the cameras, they did such a fantastic job with that one segment of the performance where it was completely like portrait close-ups of Kendrick's face, and like these strobes were going, and it was like they were switching rapidly between cameras to match the timing of the strobes. And so the amount of coordination that must have gone into that must have been insane, and it turned out extremely well. So, I mean, great job to the internal team over at the Grammys. They did a fantastic job collaborating with Kendrick on that. I
think they probably have like, for each performance, they have their own team doing it, and they like jump into the studio and they do all the camera stuff. But I felt like I was watching like a live music video.
Yeah, which, interestingly enough, there was a live music video that was filmed in between the Grammy segments, which was Gwen Stefani's new track. She partnered with Target and produced a live music video like in the course of 3.5 minutes for her new song, which is, what is it called? Make Me Like You. And that was like, they did the entire thing live, which was interesting. And she actually like tumbled halfway through, but people don't know if that was real or not.
No, that's great. What did you think of Lady Gaga's tribute to David Bowie? I thought the beginning part with like a close up of her face, and it was like a projection of the makeup and then the spider walking over. That was pretty cool.
Yes, the spider.
Did you like spiders?
Yes, I did. I thought that was a great touch. I mean, I'm scared to comment on this because I know how immensely passionate Bowie fans are.
And Gaga fans.
And Gaga fans, for sure. Both of them. And there's a lot of overlap between the two. I think for me, overall, I really enjoyed it. Can I speak specifically to how well she sort of made a tribute to Bowie? I don't think I can, just because I'm not as big of a Bowie fan as a lot of people out there. But, you know, from a more general viewer and someone who's kind of familiar with his music and his performance style and everything, I thought she did a pretty good job. It was, it was definitely a heartfelt effort on her part.
She's also the reason why Live in Limbo doesn't have a comment section anymore.
Really?
Yeah, because we did a review of her, I think it was Art Pop, and then there was like 90 comments.
Oh gosh.
Because Andres compared her with Madonna, and then that blew up, and then that's why we don't have a comment section.
Oh, well, there you go, little monsters. You guys can change the world. Not the world, definitely the comment systems.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about the actual awards of the Grammy. So some of the big ones, let's say the Best New Artist.
Yes.
I was mixed feelings with this one. I really wanted Courtney Barnett to win. I can see why she didn't win, because the other contenders were a lot more pop centric, which seems like where the world's going. But so you had Meghan Trainor, who won. Congrats. And then James Bay, Tori Kelly, and Sam Hunt. And so I right off the bat kind of knew Courtney Barnett was not going to win, because you had Meghan Trainor like all over the Grammys, like performing stuff. And even James Bay and Tori Kelly did their amazing duet, which was awesome. So usually whoever performs is probably going to win. That's usually the case. And what did you think of this?
I was actually kind of pulling for Tori Kelly. I think the ceremony completely put me on her bandwagon, because I knew that she was extremely vocally talented, but that performance with James Bay was incredible. And then she was nominated, which was fantastic. And I actually thought she was going to win, because I just felt like this past year for her has been amazing. And there's been a lot of hype around her, and she's had a lot of appearances, and she's going to be touring and all that fun stuff. And then she ended the night with that incredible eye roll.
Yeah. But like Megan doesn't really seem new to me, nor does her music like really make like a big stance.
Yeah, and if anything, there's some controversy.
Yeah, there is,
around her music, and one of her music videos in particular. I think for Megan, in a way, it's great that she won, because she has been in this industry for a while as a singer-songwriter. And that's kind of the piece as for why she was nominated this year, not in previous years, because her album didn't make the eligibility period for last year's ceremony. And her song "Your Lips Are Moving" came out, or whatchamacallit, what was her lead single again?
All About That Bass.
All About That Bass. That came out a couple years ago, but she didn't meet the eligibility period for last year. And prior to that, she was a songwriter. So her presence has definitely been there for a while. So it's kind of nice that it got rewarded, because it does seem like she's very dedicated to her craft and to this industry. And her speech, and the camera pans to her father who's crying, and the feels are going on. It was a nice moment, but I do get it though, because it does feel like she's been here for a while.
I feel I agree, but I feel like some award shows, like other ones, they have a best breakthrough artist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they should actually have both. Like a new artist should be one that came out like literally within that year. Like, so if it's the 2016 Grammys, like if they have that show, then the new artist should be literally from the year before, like first single is out. And then they have one best breakthrough artist, which could be someone that's been in the scene for a while, but now just like Sia, for example.
Right.
Like Sia wouldn't be best new artist, would she?
No.
Watch her get nominated next year.
I don't know. Sia will not. I don't think she would. And I'm not sure what the specific eligibility requirements are for Best New Artist. For some reason, I feel like it has to do with the release of your debut album. And Sia has been in this industry for over 15 years, maybe.
Yeah.
Like she's kind of a veteran in her own way, and she's kind of revamped her career over the last couple of years. So she wouldn't be in that category.
She would be a breakthrough artist.
Yeah, maybe she would be a breakthrough artist. But then, like the inner like old school Sia fans like myself would be like, she was breaking through before like you guys ever realized.
Well, she broke through when she started covering up her face. That's her moment. That's what she says when she started noticing the fame.
Yeah, that and a couple of EDM records, and
I don't want to be part of this anymore. Okay, how about best or song of the year that went to Thinking Out Loud by Ed Sheeran, and he was in a category with Taylor Swift, and when he won, she just looked so happy. Like I remember that moment. She's like, yes. I
know, she's quite the squad leader. No, I mean that was really lovely though to see her have such a positive and genuine reaction. Like she seemed more excited than Ed Sheeran was in that moment.
I think he helped kind of discover.
Was like cheering and.
Yeah, I think she helped kind of discover him in a way, because I remember he opened for her like many years ago.
Yeah, I think she definitely helped propel his career, and like she was one of the first big artists to endorse him, right? And a Taylor Swift endorsement does go pretty far in this industry now. She's at that point, and in terms of the actual song, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of it. It's actually probably on closer to the bottom of my list of songs that I heard last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's great for him. I personally, I actually was hoping this entire award season, and that's like going across the Golden Globes, the Academy Awards, the Grammys, that Wiz Khalifa would just like have a clean sweep across, best song for See You Again. And not because like, I don't think it's a groundbreaking song per se, but the impact and like the rotation it's had on radio. And like, I just thought that was such a hugely celebrated song.
You could insert that song into like any kind of YouTube video and it would work.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I kind of was like secretly hoping for that, just because he actually didn't get nominated for the Oscar for Best Original Song. And I mean,
Grammy.
Like,
oh, no. Yeah.
No. Well, like in terms of the clean sweep aspect, I was hoping for that. So I was like, I would love for him to have just that one win. I wasn't really thinking that Ed Sheeran was going to take that.
Yeah, that one was kind of wild.
Yeah.
How about record of the year? So a lot of people get confused. Song of the year is like the actual writing.
Mm-hmm.
And then record is like the actual, like the production of it.
Right.
Yeah. So record of the year went to Uptown Funk by Mark Ronson featuring Bruno Mars.
I actually was pretty okay with, I was pretty happy with that result because I think
I thought The Weeknd was going to win for sure.
I think for The Weeknd, like if we're looking at production solely, I mean, Can't Feel My Face is a phenomenal song and it's a huge breakthrough track for him. But if we're looking at how the evolution of genre mashing is occurring in mainstream music, Uptown Funk was really a great lead into the resurgence of funk music into the mainstream field again.
So do you think that will be the trend for 2016 and 17? Funk?
Yeah, I can definitely see that continuing on. And I mean, like Kendrick included that in his album because hip hop, if you go back to old school hip hop, has a huge history with funk and jazz music and incorporating samples of those genres into the music. And Kendrick he brought that back in his second effort, To Pimp a Butterfly as well. So I can definitely see that branching out into other genres as well. And I think Mark and Bruno just found the sweet spot at the right moment. And Uptown Funk is definitely one of those songs that like, it's cool for the kids and it's cool for the parents. Like the parents are like, this is from my generation. And then they get into it and the kids are like, well, no, it's actually from mine now. So, I think it was just a universally loved song and it was a great moment for them. And I think it worked. Like it was a good time.
Absolutely. Are there any awards that you want to talk about before we get into the album of the year one?
Honestly, Sean, it is just the album of the year
one. Okay, let's dive right into it. Okay, so album of the year, the nominees were 1989 by Taylor Swift, Sound and Color by Alabama Shakes, who is amazing. I love Alabama Shakes, by the way.
Yeah, they're great.
How to Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar, Traveler by Chris Stapleton, and Beauty Behind the Madness by The Weeknd. So this is a pretty star-studded and stacked category.
Pretty stacked category, yeah.
It's very hard here. So the winner at the end of the day is to many's happiness and dismay, depending on what side you're on. I'm a Swift fan. I love Taylor Swift. And so she won Album of the Year for 1989.
Yes.
And what's interesting is that this puts her into a rare category of people who have won this twice or more. So I think U2 won in 2006 and 1988. And then Paul Simon also won. I think he has 3 overall, though. And then, who else? Frank Sinatra and Stevie Wonder. And now Taylor Swift. So
I mean, that puts her in some fantastic company. And it's an incredible independent feat for her for winning that award twice as the first female artist to do so.
That is true too, yes. Yeah.
Right? That is a huge moment for her and for women in music, generally speaking. I think what I need to clearly sort of define first is that it's not that I don't think that 1989 is worthy of Album of the Year, because it was an Album of the Year. I don't think anyone can really deny the impact that it had in music in terms of Billboard charts and radio and everything. For Taylor's particular musical career, it was a huge departure from her catalog and showed a complete evolution in terms of her sound. The tour that accompanied it was incredibly hyped. It was huge around the world. It was a huge achievement. So there are a lot of big things that happened with this record for Taylor Swift as well as the world. So I don't want to sit here and be like, it's not worthy, period. I just don't think it was the album of the year. And as I said before, To Pimp a Butterfly, Kendrick Lamar's second album, or third, depending what party you're on. That was, to me, that was the album of the year. I don't think, when you have people chanting the lyrics in the middle of protests or referring to it as a sort of piece to read into American politics and pop culture at the same time, that impact in itself defines it as a huge feat, which I would personally think is a little bit more impressive than 1989.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, for his personal artistry as well, I mean, his debut, like Good Kid, Mad City, was a phenomenal album in itself. It received universal critical acclaim. Fans loved it. The narrative was incredible. So when you go from that album, like, which was basically a perfect album, and then how do you build on that? And it was just this whole incredible personal journey that manifested itself onto an album that had political, pop culture, and personal ramifications. And it's a marked moment, not only in his career or in Grammy history, but in our political history as well. And I don't think 1989 had that same impact. I just
Do you
don't
think maybe that's why they kind of wanted to avoid that? They just wanted something that was safe.
I don't...
Because they did give him best rap album, performance, song, and rap/sung collaboration. But they wanted to definitely keep him in that category. Yeah,
I mean, and that's the thing. Like, it was great that he got all these other accolades from the night. So it kind of, tempered that result a little bit. But I'd have to learn more about the Grammys history with hip hop to really see how that result fits into it. Because you're right. Sometimes with that genre, people or academies or, whoever's voting for these things, they might not place the impact of hip hop on the same platform as a pop album, or dare to take that risk to say that, something with this much commentary and depth, is deserving of a mainstream award, or not deserving, but like may not take that risk to actually put it out there completely and endorse it in such a heavy way. But I don't know. I'm trying to think, like, on what level. Well, I guess that's the big level, but like it's just such a great album and it had such a huge impact on so many levels.
Yeah.
That I can't understand it.
No, I think to answer your question, though, I think this might be the year that changes, because they did acknowledge him for the album of the year. They gave him all those awards in the rap category. And then they also featured Hamilton, which is the hip hop, the first hip hop Broadway show.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they showed like an entire segment there, and then that won best. I don't even know what the category is. Theatrical performance, something like that, which they usually never ever show on the televised version. But of course, this is going to be there, and of course, it wins.
Yeah.
So I think this is the year that maybe they take some more weight in the hip hop categories.
Yeah, definitely. And well, I mean, there's so many arguments that, like, with Kendrick and Hamilton, and then like I'll even throw D'Angelo in there. Like, it's great that all these works were put in there and were awarded in different ways. But then if you look at the best new artist category, like arguably Fetty Wap should have been in there, right? I think that was like a huge piece for a lot of people. And to sort of see the commercial and mainstream impact of hip hop, it needs the lens needs to grow. And like I think there needs to be more valuation for it, and it's funny because of how much it charts and how much it's on radio and everything. But from the sort of accolade award standpoint, there's a lot more that can be done with it. So, I mean, I'm really happy that Kendrick did walk away with quite a few trophies, but it just felt like a snub all over again. And this time it felt even worse because I genuinely was like, this is it. Like, this has to be it.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's my personal sort of sentiment, but I know a lot of people shared that as well.
I do feel like he got snubbed, but I do really like Taylor Swift.
Yeah, again, I will say it again. I think 1989 is a great album. It's not that I don't, and I think it's an album of the year. For me, it's not the album of the year.
Well, let's just hope that from now on, or at least starting now, that this category of rap and hip hop will experience better fruitation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Capsule.
So moving on, let's talk about another rap hip hop album. This is Kanye West's Life of Pablo.
Yes.
Highly controversial or like provocative, and Twitter storms everywhere galore. Andreas, one of our editors, he wrote the review and he gave it a 9. After he listened to it the first time, and then he said he's going to need at least 2 days to decide if he likes it or not. And then he finally gave it a 9.3 out of 10. And he says in quotes, "As of now, it's a unique experience. In the future, the life of Pablo will either break ground and be considered one of West's greatest points of genius, or it will be maligned for something that we were misled by." So to set the mood, Kanye just out of the blue, after so many teasers everywhere and tweeting, he just releases it. I think it was on Valentine's Day, actually. He released it on Tidal exclusively. There were some minor hiccups and glitches, but it was fine. And he actually kind of was like, "You have to subscribe to Tidal" on Twitter. He's like, "Please subscribe to Tidal." And so everyone was kind of like, "Why is it not on Spotify or Apple Music? Apple gave you a solid gold Apple Watch. Come on." So maybe in a few weeks or so. But what did you think of this album?
Oh, The Life of Pablo. Well, to be honest, I'm still digesting it a little bit, but my first reaction is that it's kind of an amalgamation of Kanye West, period. And I don't know if that's what he refers to when he says The Life of Pablo, if he's calling himself Pablo, if he's referring to the parallel ideas between his career and Pablo Picasso's career, or any other Pablo Escobar, whoever it is. But there's definitely a lot of marked moments in it that sort of reflect different periods in his artistry. And I think my favorites are the ones that remind me of his earlier work the most. And those were probably the ones that we heard through his Good Friday releases, the ones that he just dropped on SoundCloud randomly on Fridays. So No More Parties in LA and Real Friends, those two, I mean, those definitely stick out to me, even in the album, not just because I listened to them prior to listening to the entire album. I love the production work on Famous, which contains the now infamous line about Taylor Swift.
I know, yeah. What's that about? I thought they made up. Now he's taking a swipe at her.
Yeah, I'm really undecided about that whole segment in their relationship.
So that was just for show. He actually still doesn't like her.
Possibly.
Well, it doesn't sound like he does.
and then he also called her out on Twitter, and then she basically called him out at the Grammys. So it's this weird, snarky back and forth. Is that line as humorous as he thought it was? Probably not.
It didn't sound too humorous.
Excuse me. Yeah. No, it I don't think Taylor Swift is the kind of artist that you can make a line like that about. And then generally speaking, it's pretty misogynistic. So I would definitely extend that to any other artist that maybe he would refer to in that capacity as well. But in terms of like the actual like hype, the production, I think Swizz Beatz did that track in particular. It's like, that's like the club banger. You're going to hear it at his next tour and like people are going to freak out. Like I love that aspect to the song. He's got a whole bunch of interesting interludes and freestyles in there. So that kind of, in terms of production and the lyricism and stuff, it's just like this weird amalgamation of Kanye West altogether. So yeah, I there are definitely some things to it that are striking that I'm returning to as I listen to the album more and more. And then of course we can't forget Ultra Light Beam with Chance the Rapper, which is apparently the reason why The Life of Pablo was delayed last week, because we had to blame Chance because
I thought it was for the Waves the Waves track, no?
Oh, I thought it was for that. Okay.
Oh. Well, either one, it was Chance's fault.
Chance. My goodness. But yeah, it's a good album. I do enjoy it
So
overall.
people were saying like, why is it 18 albums, but 18 tracks? But I was like, half of them are like a minute
Yeah.
or under two. So they're just interlude. You know, my favorite track on the entire album is FML.
Yes.
I think that is the best track.
Yeah.
So most people think like you would usually think it stands for like F My Life, but I read it stands for My Lady, and it features The Weeknd and Travis Scott. So I think of the entire Life of Pablo album, it's the most emotional and deep and focused. It has a very good progressive build, and the end kind of reminds me of Kid A from Radiohead.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's definitely the peak of introspection on the album.
Yeah, that's a climax. Maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. I think that's kind of like a callback to 808s in terms of the emotional content. Not the production side of it, but the sort of emotional honesty that he goes for on that song. And then, The Weeknd, you gotta shout out Canadian love out there. So that's really great too. I think for me, my big sort of point of contention is with Wolves, which I listed as one of my top 3 favorite songs from last year. So Wolves was debuted on Saturday Night Live last year for the 40th anniversary special, and Kanye performed that with Sia and Vic Mensa, and that was the first time that he debuted it. And the live recording for that song, to me, is better than the version that ended up on the album, which does not include Sia, does not include Vic Mensa. Actually, Frank Ocean is on it. And as much as I love Frank Ocean, and I think vocally he does a great job, and I love hearing him on a Kanye album again, I wish that Kanye did keep Sia and Vic Mensa in there, because they gave that song so much life, and they were really the reason why it became one of my top 3 favorite songs of 2015.
I wonder what goes into the decision making of something like that.
Well, see, it's weird, and I think this is just a sort of overall statement for this whole album, but it seems that Kanye is just indecisive across the board in terms of the album release, and the name changes for the title, and he actually, when he released it last weekend, he took it down shortly after, because he said, one of the reasons why was that he wanted to rework Wolves, and he wanted to change it before putting it back up on Tidal, which I don't think he did.
Did you get it? Did you listen to it on Tidal?
Yes.
You did? Wink, wink. I did not. I won't say how, but I did not.
Actually, later in the week, a version surfaced online of Wolves, a version of Wolves surfaced online, which integrated the album version with Vic Mensa and Sia's contributions on there. And so nobody knows if it's actually the real deal. It could be just some, anonymous, insanely good producer online who knows how to cut things, because that version works better to me than what Kanye put on TLOP.
So Kanye needs to hire that guy, that random producer.
If that wasn't Kanye, then who did that and who put that online randomly, and whoever did actually work on that, please try and figure out how to get that to him.
Yeah. What would you give this album out of 10?
At this point, I would probably give it a 7.5 to an 8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Andres was way generous then.
I mean, it's different, right? Sometimes it depends on your listening experience too. And I usually find with repeat listens, particularly with Kanye West albums, that I tend to like them more as I listen to them more. And that was definitely the case with Yeezus, which I thought was just noise at first. But then the more that I listened to it, the more I kind of broke it down. I realized how much genius there was in it, in terms of production. And it is important to note that Kanye West, first and foremost, has always been a producer. That's how he got into this industry. That's how he made a name for himself initially. And that is where his skill lies. And on this album, there's so much great work on that side of things. And he collaborated with Rick Rubin again. And, he's got all these other great people that he's working with. So that is a striking aspect to it for me. I think that's what stands out to me more than the lyricism on a lot of songs, but it'll grow. I'm, you know, and I'm trying, and that's not even bias speaking. I'm sure it'll grow on me. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so now he's $53 million in debt, and he wants $1 billion from Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, allegedly, because he wants to
invest in his ideas.
Yes, invest in his ideas. He wants to make textbooks cheaper, which I would definitely support. I think education is great, and the resources are extremely expensive for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So that's a great endeavor. And then who knows what else? Well, actually, we do know, because he posted that. He posted this sort of idea map about the different creative and R&D aspects to his company Donda that he wants to expand into. And there's like holograms, or like holographic technology appears like 3 different times in 3 different product categories. So, you know, his mind, it's pretty expansive, I think, or in terms of like his vision for the future. I don't know.
I think it's a good idea. Like, imagine one day people can listen to Capsule, but then they can see our holograms at the same time.
Oh God. No.
we just appear in the people's
morning on Saturdays. I personally would not want that.
We'll appear at your breakfast table.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'll make waffles for it.
But you won't be able to eat it. Anyways, so let's talk about some industry distribution model news. So 2 topics. First one we're going to talk about is VEVO. Everyone knows VEVO. If you love music videos, pretty much every single music video is on VEVO, even if you're on like YouTube or something like that. So for the last few years, since beginning, they've been ad supported, but now their chief executive, Eric Huggers, says that while they will maintain their ad supported model, they want to add in a subscription model as well. They attract roughly 17 billion video views a month, which is all watchable on mobile devices as well. And so everyone is trying to now move towards this paid model. Like, so Spotify has their ad supported model, and they're trying to grow their paid subscriptions by giving out Chromecasts and stuff like that. And Apple Music is like 100% subscription based. So what are your thoughts on this? Do you think it will affect any kind of consumption habits from consumers?
See, when any time, especially in this digital age, but particular to this digital age, is that content is key, right? And what's going to differentiate between paid models and free models, and then also trying to convince users to subscribe on pay for their subscription, is the type of content that they'll offer. So with VEVO, when we look at Tidal, for example, because they have so many partnerships and affiliations with a whole bunch of extremely popular artists, they're able to promote and release content exclusively on their platform. So we can look back to Nicki Minaj and Beyonce's collaboration for Feeling Myself. That music video, which is basically 4 minutes worth of memes, first was kind of leaked on Twitter, but then it went strictly to Tidal. And the only way you could really watch it was on Tidal. So VEVO will have to try and determine what content they can offer exclusively. And I know in some of the articles that I read, they also were referring to YouTube Red, which is the paid subscription that YouTube offers now. And part of their offering is the original programming that they're trying to produce, along with ad-free content. But now they've got YouTubers making exclusive content for YouTube Red. And I'd have to, it would really depend on what kind of exclusive content VEVO could add to create that value and to really develop that as a viable business revenue stream.
Yeah, to me, it seems like if your platform cannot have both, because how do you determine which side of the coin, the ad supported versus the paid, subscription model, how do you decide who gets what?
Yeah.
And then if it was just the paid model, are the exclusives, are those exclusive content things that you have enough to warrant that paid model? So like Tidal can, yes, they can have Kanye's new album, but that's like one album. And then you have like Nicki Minaj, and then that's only like a few albums per year. It's not like a super consistent daily, if not weekly thing.
Right.
Is that enough to warrant your $20 a month for Tidal?
Personally, no. And that's why I haven't really given Tidal a shot yet, is that I'm personally okay to wait for certain things, right? Like, I mean, even though, okay, in terms of music videos, there is content that's just strictly for Tidal. But with albums, they make their way to Spotify and Apple Music eventually.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, I have the patience for that. Younger generations, I don't know. I would be curious to see at what point would they say, okay, I'm going to commit my money to this service for a select handful of artists. And, when we talk about subscription models for video content, with VEVO, again, it'll have to depend on the originality of what content they're offering for paid subscribers versus the free ones, in order to see if people would buy into the paid model. And when we look at the benefits of paid versus free for streaming apps like Spotify, you can listen to music on the go, right? And without ads. And on Spotify Premium, you can create your playlists and save music offline and everything. Yeah. I don't know if that value necessarily transfers over to video content, because I mean, things like movies and like the actual experiences of longer forms of the video format, those are the things that if you're on the go, you're going to watch. I can't imagine people saving hours of music videos just to watch them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
And the other thing is it's the data consumption, right? So
absolutely.
For here in Canada, that's a bigger issue because data is expensive.
And our carriers suck, yeah.
Yeah. So why would people pay money for something that would consume more data, which would then in turn cost more?
I think a lot of the time too, if you're like a company such as Tidal, where you have exclusives, but they're not super consistent, you might stab yourself in the foot, or you shoot yourself in the foot, because yes, you get the Kanye album, but like if that's the only thing that you're offering at the moment and you're charging $20 a month, people will find other ways to get it. Yeah,
for sure. And I hate to say it, but at least in this last month of Tidal releases, so that'll be Rihanna's Auntie and Kanye West, The Life of Pablo, they've been making their way, elsewhere, those albums. And the whole issue with Rihanna's album release was that it got leaked on Tidal earlier than it was supposed to, even by a few hours. And I don't know if that's what prompted her to distribute it for free, or if that was intended before. But in the end, everyone had access to her album through her own means, right? Yeah. And through her own decision making.
If you are going to be a company that has a platform with a paid model and want to focus in on that, you need to have consistent exclusives that your $10 a month makes it more convenient for the consumer. Like, yes. You know what that means? Like, you have so much stuff that it's not worth the person's time to go elsewhere to find it. Like, it would be more time efficient to just pay them the $10 a month.
Yeah.
That's how exactly. I feel Apple Music is right now. What do you use?
I use Spotify, the free one, basically. Yeah, that's my main.
And do you like it?
Yeah, it's good. I want to try Apple Music at some point.
3 months free.
I know. And I because I do like their original programming that they have on there, with the Beats Radio and everything. That's the main selling point for me. So, and there it is right there, right? Like they have this consistent, exclusive weekly content
Daily.
People can, daily content actually. And people will tune in, right? That brand loyalty and the artist loyalty will be there because people want to hear more from artists like Drake, who has OVO Sound Radio, right? They want to be able to be a part of that exclusive session where he drops Summer 16 or Heim Time or whatever. I can't remember what Pharrell's program is, but he has special guests from hip hop all the time, right?
It's like not worth my time to go on torrenting websites to find each episode or these tracks, like because they come out so consistently. It's worth my time to just give them $10.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, what, like the first thing that came to my mind when I heard about this and in terms of what VEVO could offer, the only thing that I could think of were the live studio performances that they have sometimes.
Yeah, those are cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And those are nice, right? For different artists because they, you can hear them acoustically and live and a cappella and whatever. But if they could turn that into some sort of concert series or, exclusive access to a concert series, like imagine if Adele did like an hour-long program with VEVO.
Wow.
Then I could see that working for them, but it would have to be consistent enough and big enough for people to want to continue to.
Exactly. While we're on the topic of streaming, Universal is now the first $1 billion US dollars streaming record company. So because they launched 2 of the top 3 US albums last year, Taylor Swift's 1989 and Justin Bieber's Purpose. They saw an increase of $5.6 billion. So, and a huge 43% hike in the subscriptions and streaming revenues. So they are doing very well.
Yeah. That right there speaks to, the power of your artists and how to really manage them in the digital space because, it's like we were just talking about, people will want to listen to certain artists on repeat and really pay for those opportunities to do so. So,
but I think it also kind of solidifies streaming as a viable, sustainable platform too, because so many people are still skeptical about it. And so I think this this can be an industry. Yeah,
for sure. And one that can be potentially can be quite lucrative as well. I would be curious to know what the breakdown is in terms of the individual streaming revenues and what platforms are generating more for them. But obviously, we would not be privy to that information as the public. But
Capsule, music, film, pop culture.
Let's talk about something a little more serious. So, you gave me a good idea about putting a trigger warning. So, trigger warning. We'd like to discuss Kesha's court case, and we're just going to say it includes sexual assault allegations. So, please, if you are like offended or you don't want to hear about this right now, you can fast forward, and I will reinsert a time code where you can skip to. So, fair warning. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Okay. So, Mehek, this is a very important issue. I've been reading about this for the last year.
Yes.
And so, Friday, February 19th, I think the courts finally came to their conclusion in this dispute between Kesha and her producer, Dr. Luke. And now, so basically, do you want to kind of summarize what the case was, and then we'll talk about what their decision is?
Sure. So about a year ago, or I would say in September, October 2014, Kesha submitted sexual assault allegations against Dr. Luke and filed a lawsuit where, amongst some of the things that she had said was that he had drugged her and raped her at the age of 18. And, she had ended up in places that she didn't realize that she'd end up in. He physically and emotionally abused her as well over the course of their working partnership. And apparently that also impacted her decision, or the reason why she had to go to rehab a few years ago for her eating disorder. That was also a contributing factor there. And so she filed this lawsuit requesting that she basically can separate herself and be let go of out of her contract as well. So sorry, I should distinguish between the two. There were sexual assault allegations and a lawsuit filed for that, and then also she also submitted an injunction against her record label's contract, where she would be let out of the contract because she didn't. She felt at the time of the signing of her record contract at the age of 18 that it was basically it was a misunderstood contract, and that she should be let out of it because of her actual concerns for her safety as well. And over the last year, there's been a lot of back and forth between Dr. Luke's camp and Kesha's camp, and Dr. Luke's camp has been suggesting that Kesha's claims are they're overzealous, and there's little evidence towards that, and that the facts aren't all there, and that she's making some outrageous claims. And then he also submitted a lawsuit against Kesha for defamation, and a few other things as well. And basically what that's led to is a couple of court hearings over the injunction specifically to let Kesha out of her contract with her record label. And yesterday, the judge decided to not accept the injunction, and she denied Kesha to be let out of her contract. So she is still signed to her record label, as well as Dr. Luke's, sub record label, or the imprint that falls under her actual label, which is where she is signed, and she's not being let out of that contract. The judge hasn't actually decided about the legal proceedings for both Kesha's sexual assault lawsuit and Dr. Luke's defamation lawsuit. Those are two things that remain undecided at this time. But the big news that came out of yesterday is that she won't be allowed out of her contract, even though she's expressed concern for her safety and for physical and emotional harm.
This is absolutely wild. The Manhattan Supreme Court Judge, Shirley Warner, Koresh, something like that. Sorry. But anyway, so she, as you said, turned down the injunction. And so actually I dug a little deeper. And so Kesha is actually she has to, as part of this contract, she has to oblige to record 6 more albums with him. That's how many. That's kind of crazy. Why would you sign a contract where you're like, I'm going to do 6 albums? So including the previous one, I guess that would be 7, but that's a lot of albums.
That's a lot of albums.
So essentially she said her career is over.
Yeah. As a result of, because she said that she fears that with these, these sort of, these crossovers between her legal pursuits and her actual work as an artist, that they might be compromised as a result. And she fears that her record label won't invest as much in her and promote her as often, which in that particular respect, some of you may recall, was a similar situation with JoJo and her record label for quite a long time, where they weren't, she was obligated to produce X amount of albums and music for a certain term, but she wasn't getting the same promotional and record label support that she had expected. So Kesha is suggesting that would impact her ability as an artist to produce and to perform in that respect. And then also, in terms of her creative artistry, to work with Dr. Luke is just not an option at this point.
I wonder if she's still allowed to perform though, or not. Because 6 albums.
I would imagine that she's still allowed to perform whatever music that she's created. But anything going forward, I don't think she would be allowed to release as an official album, which is what, JoJo did that as well, right? She released.
How did JoJo get out of it? Or how did
it was a long legal dispute that lasted for, I think it was 8 years.
Oh my God.
And she signed her contract very young as well, much younger than Kesha. I think JoJo was only 13 when she signed her contract, and she just recently got out of it a couple of years ago.
Which you got to interview her, and you can see that in the show notes. That was great. But like 6 records for Kesha, that's like, so if normally an artist will release an album, let's say every 2 to 3 years, maybe even longer, 4 years. That's like the next 12 years.
Well, I mean, it depends, right? Because, at the time when Kesha signed with Dr. Luke and with her label, sometimes with new artists, they are more keen to push out content and to push out albums quicker than more established artists, right?
And take advantage of them when they're younger,
Exactly. And even if you look at Rihanna's career, she released an album per year for like the first 5 or 6 years of her career.
Maybe that's just to clear the contract out.
Possibly. And but you have, as a newer artist, they do pursue that route a lot of the time so that they just pump it out really quickly. But with Kesha, she, and it's very much possible that, at the age of 18, things change over time, right? Like 18 is still a very young age to sign a record label. And when you go or sign a record contract, and when you go in thinking about a creative relationship a particular way, you can think, or you might imagine that this can work out in the long term, and that it would be okay to continue this relationship because things start off in a particular way, in a particularly positive way. And then naturally things can change creatively. And then in her case, personally as well, where she feels that her safety is being compromised in her workplace.
I know, it's terrible. I hope she figures something out and how to get out of it. But people from all over the world have come to Kesha's aid, including Lady Gaga and Lorde, just to name a few. So I really hope she can sort this out, because it's really total hogwash, in my opinion.
For sure. I think I can't even imagine how tough it has been for her to have to relive her experiences and to have to push so hard for her freedom.
It's it's two major things. The sexual assaults, that's the first major big thing of this whole story. And the second one, it's like, you're not even like fired or unemployed, but it's like, you're not allowed to work.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that is. It's like someone telling you you're not allowed to work for a living anymore.
Yeah. Well, the quote unquote compromise, which I don't really want to call it that, but what Sony and Dr. Luke proposed was that Kesha can continue to record with a different producer and not with him. Or that, that was their sort of accommodation, I guess, in the process. And that's what's on the table as of right now, because the other lawsuits haven't been determined as to whether or not they will proceed to court. So I don't know. I don't know if she'll pursue that option. So far, I don't think she wants to, and I can completely understand why.
Or maybe there's like a buyout of the contract or something. Someone can help her. Maybe.
It would probably take a significant amount of resources to do that. And I'm no lawyer. I'm no legal expert. So I don't know how that would work in court either. In terms of contract disputes and everything, I don't know how that would work. So it is a terrible thing for her to go through and to struggle through. And I can only wish for the best for her. And it's great to see the music community also come out and, give her the support that she deserves.
Yeah. We have your back, Kesha.
Streaming to you from live in Limbo. You're listening to Capsule.
All right. So another important matter. It's the big Apple the FBI versus Apple situation. So right off the bat, some think this is a pretty silly matter. but I think it's a very slippery slope that we're on right now. This very case and moment in time will set the tone for the future of the digital age, which affects literally everyone, especially if you're listening to this podcast, you like music, you're on Twitter, Facebook, on your phones, doesn't even have to be an iPhone, any kind of smart device, tablet, you're affected by this. It will influence everyone. So right now, Apple is like the only company with the influence, resources, and balls to actually protect your privacy. So if they lose this case to the FBI, everyone will lose. So take it very seriously. Essentially, it's part of the ongoing case for San Bernardino, the shooting of a terrorist suspect shot people and killed them, ended their lives. And now the FBI wants to break into the suspect's iPhone and gather information, but Apple does not want to break into their own operating system. It's a matter of privacy. As Tim Cook says, this will set a very dangerous precedent if this happens. What are your thoughts on this whole situation, Mehek?
Well, it's funny because, for so many years we've kind of seen this ongoing relationship between government and tech companies, and the amount of lobbying that tech companies have done to try and have access to consumer data and to try and retain access to that data and be the sort of proprietor of it. And to see Apple come out and actually, really stand against what, the government sort of has been trying for over the last couple of years to use it as a sort of Big Brother is watching and surveillance tool is quite substantial for the industry. And, in light of Apple making that statement or Tim Cook releasing that statement, we have Twitter, who's come out for support. Google has announced their support. Facebook has announced their support. So it's really a widespread industry concern. And if it's that huge, then we should be paying more attention to it.
Yeah. But I like that those companies came out, but if you can like put them on a table, they're just only like, yes, we support Apple. Apple is the one that's like, here's our thoughtful thought process and thinking behind of why privacy is so important. There was this great piece by a blogger, tech blogger, Robin Doherty, something like that. Sorry. But he says it doesn't matter if you have nothing to hide, in quotes. Like usually that's a thing the government officials like to say. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about. But he says privacy is a right granted to individuals that underpins the freedoms of expressions, association, and assembly, all of which are essential for free and a democratic society. And then Edward Snowden said, arguing that you don't care about the right to privacy because you have nothing to hide is no different than saying you don't care about free speech because you have nothing to say. So, yeah, I mean, it's if we want to look back at things like phone tapping, for example, or like governments listening into our phone conversations, that in itself was such a huge invasion of privacy. But the amount of information that we as consumers put onto servers and networks using our individual personal devices is probably tenfold of things that you would hear in a phone conversation. And it's the ramifications of that are so much bigger than what we could even imagine if the US government wins this case, or the FBI specifically wins this case, to provide that unprecedented or potentially unprecedented access, is a huge violation. Because everyone's device will have a backdoor.
Yeah, exactly. And it opens up threats to other parties as well, right? Yeah. Once there is a code or a backdoor into people's devices, others will figure it out, right?
Exactly.
They will determine where that entry point is, and that can come from anywhere in this world.
Like Windows has a backdoor. I think Android has a backdoor as well. iOS and OS 10 for the Mac do not have a backdoor. The FBI essentially are suggesting that Apple build in their next update a backdoor. So if there is a backdoor, then hackers can break in, as you said.
Yes, exactly. And that opens doors to a lot of potentially very messy and harmful things. From outside of, from inside the United States, from your people down the street potentially, and then from people around the world, right? And that could in turn affect people around the world. So it's not just something that, unless Apple's very specific to how they distribute their software updates, but it's something that could potentially affect millions upon millions of people.
Literally everyone now.
Yeah, beyond the North American borders.
Yeah, so this is a very important subject. If you don't think it's important, you are wrong. I wish we could end the show on a better note, but I think that's very important. And this is episode 101, so yeah. Big. We're
on to the next 100, guys. So a lot of big topics this week. And looking forward to talking about more in the coming episodes because I really like this podcast thing.
Yay. Where can all of our listeners find you, Mehek?
I am on Twitter and Instagram at what the Mehek, so WhatTheMehek. Lots of letters, I know, but I'm out there. I also have a blog, www.whatthemehek.wordpress.com. Come chat with me. I love pop culture. I love film. I love music. I love business. I love tech. And I love your food pictures as well. So feel free to tweet me those.
Stalk her.
No.
Okay. Just follow.
But you can, send me pictures of your waffles and we'll be friends.
You like dogs too.
I do. Okay. I have a particular love for bulldogs. So
send her those. Yes.
If you have an English or French or American bulldog or bulldog boxer or whatever, send me their pictures.
Amazing. I will do that soon. You can follow myself on Twitter at Sean Chin. You can follow the show at Live in Limbo and use the hashtag Capsule Podcast to join in on the conversation. Please subscribe to us in iTunes. Give us 5 stars. Leave us some nice words in the review section. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Live in Limbo TV. You can see some of Mehek's awesome interviews there, like with JoJo, as we mentioned. That was great. And Oh Wonder. That was awesome too.
Yes.
And of course, you can find the show notes at liveinlimbo.com/capsule. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.